Hello everyone, welcome to the lectures courses delivered by Dr. Binh. Today we are going to have the Airline's economic courses. And let me share with you the lecture note. Okay. And for these courses, the contents are partly based on the book Airline's Economics, the Foundations for Strategy and Policy, written by the Professor Michael Treadaway and J.H. from University of British Columbia, the Center for Transportation Studies from Vancouver, Canada. So today we're going to discuss on the chapter Consumer Demand. So first of all, I would like to present you the basic elements of demands for the air service. So you know that when the economists refer to the determinants of consumer demands for air service, so that means the set of factors which influences an individual decisions for air travel. And you know how much people will travel by air in a given year. So this is the demand. So the main determinants of the airline's demands are firstly, you see that you see the cursors, the price here. The price, so when the prices are lower, so airlines who provides the lower price will induce the people to travel. And second, the income or higher disposable income influence the consumer to travel more. And thirdly, the price and convenience of the mode of transport. So here we would like to mean that so this is, I'll give you an example. For example, now we are living in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, and we have a neighboring country, and its capital is Phnom Penh, Cambodia. So the distance between two cities is around 230 kilometers. So compare with the price and convenience, travelers may consider, for example, a traveler may take a bus for $10 for one tour and 6 hours from Phnom Penh to Ho Chi Minh City. Why? He have to pay $100 for the flight from Phnom Penh to Ho Chi Minh City, and the actual flight is around 40 minutes, but the total times he gets from his house in Phnom Penh to the airport and check in at the airport and wait for boarding and the time for flight and arrive at the airport in Ho Chi Minh City and getting out and arrive at his destination in Ho Chi Minh City. So it also takes about 5 hours. So compared to that, the passengers may consider about the price and the convenience of the different modes of transport, and he will decide whether he would choose to travel by air or not. And the fourth factor is the frequency of service. So for the frequency of service, we know that when the more frequent service will provide the more convenience, so they will increase the willingness of the consumer to travel by air. And fifthly, here, timing of service. For timing of services means that, in general, consumers prefer to fly first thing in the morning or late in the afternoon. The flight of these times will induce consumer to fly by air, whereas The flights at inconvenience time such as when you arrive at 3 a.m. So this is so much inconvenience for you. And around this time, you see that this time is not convenience. So it tends to discourage you or the consumers to travel by the air from this time. So the factors number 6 is the day of the week. So for the day of the week, consumers are more likely to fly on certain days of the week than others. For example, typically, Sunday evenings are very popular, with business travelers leaving their home for their first appointment of the week. And similarly, Friday afternoon are also busy times as travelers are returning home for the week to enjoy the weekend. And the next factor is the season of the year here. For the season of the years, you see that, for example, the month July and August are popular for travel times, right? Whereas the Novembers and Februarys are very unpopular times. There are variation, of course, by markets, right? The sun spot destination are winter speaking and continent. For example, like the time zones from Australia and New Zealand are converged with other continents. So the season of the year will be in a different month. The next factor is the safety and the company goodwill. So a good safety record is good for business. So air travel tops whenever there is a major disaster. Yeah, because people are afraid of that, and it's what affects to the psychology of the consumers. And demographics here. So for the demographics, you have to notice that the age is often a factor in the travel decision, because adults may travel more than children, and children tend to travel less because children have to depend on their parents. The next factor is the distance. And the distance, here you see that the longer the travel distance involved, the field trips will be made. Business and leisure travelers make relatively fewer transoceanic flights or trips than trips across the country. And next factors is the in-flight amenities. In-flight amenities means, so when consumers are somewhat influenced how cramped seats are, the quality of food, the availability of in-flight service. So on average, these factors are less important in the decisions of whether or not to fly, but more important in the choice of the air carriers. So the next factor is the customer loyalty. For customer loyalty, in any industry, once the consumers has made the decisions to purchase a service or products, loyalty factors become into play in determining which carrier to be chosen. So in air transport, you often know that the frequent flight rewards programs are especially important in fostering customer loyalty. And the last factor is the travel time. The travel time is that when the jets were first introduced, it was a noticeable increase in consumer demand for air travels. The reduction of transcontinental flight time from 10 to 5 hours made air travel far more convenient. So it was easier. For example, for business to justify meetings which might not have taken place previously. So on-time performance is also a factor here. So especially when the consumer chooses which carriers to use. We move to which elements of demand are most important. So we have here, we have two elements that are most important. This is the price and the traveler's incomes. So of the elements which the carriers can control, certain are of special importance. Clearly, price is one of the most important determinants of consumer demands. One of the crested lessons of Airline's deregulation was that lowering price induces consumers to travel more often. Discount efforts open a whole new market segment for air travel. And in a series of studies of Airline's demands, and children found that a 10% drop in price would increase the demand for air travel in Canada by 11 or 13%. So another important variable is frequency of service. This is especially important for business travel, for whom the ability to maximize their time productivity is very important. So in a study in US travel demand, the authors like Morrison and Winston found that doubling the frequency of their service would lead a 21% increase in demand for our services by business travelers. And for pleasure travelers who are less sensitive to the availability of frequent flights, the increase could only be 5%. So right incomes is a consumer demand determined outside the control of the carriers. It's important to comment on this important. In this author study of Canadian Airlines demand, women and children in 1983, they found that an income elasticity in the range of 1.6 to 4.5%. So this means that if the economy were grow by 10%, then airlines demand would increase between 16 to 25%. So next, we move to the market segment. So you see here, there are at least two broad market segments. So the traditional bread and butter of the industry has been the business travelers. And these travelers whose tickets is typically paid by an employer is concerned with maximizing the productivity of his or her time. As a matter of fact, these individuals is very sensitive to the frequency with which service that the airlines is offer. So these travelers need an airline service which is flexible in the sense of accommodating him in the last minute changes in plans. Thus, the high probabilities of being able to obtain a seat at the last minutes are essential. Is this convenient air service with the shortest possible elapsed trip time? Business travelers are generally willing to pay for the higher quality of service and thus tend to be less responsive to prices. So see here, so the on-time performance and reliability of the airlines are also very important to these groups of consumers. So here you will see the second large group of consumers are the leisure travelers. These travelers is traveling on personal time and it's not quite concerned with maximizing time productivity. And so these individuals are less sensitive with respect how frequency service is offered by the airlines to the total elapsed time of the air trip. However, these individuals are very sensitive to prices. It's already been discussed that so the schedule reliability is also less an issue for these travelers. Another important characteristics of this consumer segment is that they tend to make their travel plans well in advance. Yeah, they might book the tickets 1 month or 2 months their planned trip. As a result, they can be induced to book and pay for their airline tickets weeks before the actual airline flight. In contrast, so this group, the business travelers, may not know until a few hours prior to the trip that the trip is necessary to them or not. So with these two large groups of customers, the airlines have been able to exploit this fundamental difference in the two consumer segments by tailoring different types of service for the two groups. The leisure travelers offers a service at a low price, but which requires advanced booking and has limited flexibility for accommodating change in travel plans. The business travelers is offer a service with relative good seat availability for the last minutes, and with no restriction on the ability to change place. They are charged at a high price for this more sensitive service, for more like expensive service. They cannot avail themselves of the low prices offered to leisure travelers, as they cannot abide by the advanced booking requirements or the restriction on a changing plans. So there are, of course, various subsegments of customers with these two broad groups, and some business travelers need to complete flexibility and are willing to pay for it, and other travelers, such as those going to pre-planned business conferences, and they also tend to be somewhat sensitive to price and have an ability to accommodate the airline by booking early. Leisure travelers can also be broken into several subgroups as well. And one distinction is between a leisure traveler to holiday resort versus the leisure travelers to visit friends and relatives, so that called the VFR group. And some leisure travelers, for example, they are retired grandparents, and they're willing to make their travel plans months in advance and would travel at inconvenient time of the day, the week, or the year in order to get a better bargain. there are also no business trips must be booked at the last minutes. So which must be booked at the last minutes? So such visiting are usually known as the visiting a sick family member or attending a funeral. So like business travelers, so these individuals tend to be price insensitive. So demands, now we come to the demand side forces favoring large carriers. So you know that in airlines markets, there are demand forces such that consumers prefer large airlines over small ones. All other factors such as prices being the same. In this context, large airlines means that the airlines that have a large number of points. In practice, there are at least 3 reasons why consumers prefer the large airlines. One reason is due to the information cost. So it means that a traveler knows that a large carrier can get him or her to choose about anywhere in the country, while smaller airlines serve only a limited number of communities. Travel agents act as intermediaries for the consumers. But even here, large network airlines have an edge, such as when an agent in one region needs to book flights to other regions. And the second reason is the higher quality of service. A second reason why consumers favor large airlines is attributable to the higher quality of service the airlines offer to them. So if connections must be made, less of the traveler's time would be required with a single airlines when a trip involves switching airlines, because single airlines flight connections are more likely to beat time in minimizing the wasting time and intermediate price. This is the hubs. So consumers are also aware that there is a lower probability of baggage being lost or delays with a single airlines. So as well as higher probability of the same airlines or outbound flight would be helpful for travelers on a delay inbound flights. The third factor causing consumers to favor larger airlines over the small carriers is the existence of the frequent flyers programs this year. And these programs reward the individual for patronizing a single carriers. Even though the fare for business travelers may be paid by the employers, it's much easier to accumulate points with an airline that flies to a large number of destinations. So in general, there are natural market forces favoring large airlines in spite of evidence of constant returns of scale. So these are economies of the traffic density. And in addition, the demand side factors, such as the information cost, the higher quality travels of service, and the frequent flyer programs here, inducing consumers to favor large over small airlines. It appears that economies of traffic densities can be fully exploited by the airlines. So you see that the large airlines will help the consumers to reduce the cost per 6 kilometers very much.